What's going on, friends? This is Neil Adler with another episode of Syracuse Central on the Fan Arch Network. It is Thursday, 2 days before Syracuse football taking on Duke. Ricky Collins under center. But we're going to do some Syracuse basketball and mainly recruiting today because, frankly, I just feel like it and it's fun. And I'll assumably get back into Syracuse football on Friday since the day before the game. But hey, we're going to talk hoops today, hoops recruiting specifically. So, in talking to folks, fellow fans on social media and chat rooms, etc., there's definitely a sentiment that, hey, it's almost October and Syracuse basketball doesn't have a 2026 verbal commit yet. And that's true. But one thing I'll say about that is in this cycle, and I've had recruiting analysts tell me this, and it's just based on some of my own conversations with folks. There's been less overall verbal commitments at this stage in the recruiting cycle in 2026 is in other years for very not just at Syracuse, just nationally. I don't have the exact number that have, and there have been some verbal pledges to other programs in the last few days, but overall, it still seems like it's kind of slower than it has been in the past. And there's a couple reasons for that. Number one, the transfer portal, the explosion of the portal, teams focusing on portal recruiting as much or frankly more than prep recruiting at the high school level. And then you've got revenue sharing now where schools can directly pay their athletes. Third party NIL, realignment, all these other factors of international players, being more focus, of teams. So just and also some analysts I've seen have said that overall they think the 2026 class, not that there's not some great players in it, might be as a whole a little bit weaker than others. So in any event, long story short, Syracuse is still looking for its first verbal commit, but let's not panic because there's a lot of other teams that are too. And also, at least one or more of their top targets has already said he's not likely to sign during the early signing period. So we've got time. But the first guy I wanted to talk about today, and I've talked about him on Syracuse Central in the past, and that's Duron Rippy Jr., the 2026 five-star point guard, top 10 national prospect. He's from Brooklyn, New York, my mom's hometown, so I got love for him there. He goes to the Blair Academy in New Jersey, and he's visiting this weekend. And I actually first reported that for one of my other positions earlier this summer before we started up Syracuse Central. But in any event, texted with Duran's dad yesterday, and they're looking forward to the visit. And I'm going to catch up with them after the visit to see how it went. But this is a big one for Syracuse. Um, Syracuse has been in on been pursuing Duran as long as any other school out there. They offered him in late August of 2023, something I first had. Um, he unofficially visited Syracuse last February, not of 25, of 24 on Jim Boeheim Day. And I was taking this official this weekend. I'm pretty sure he's going to be at the Duke game with his dad, who's a really good dude. Um, but Syracuse has been in for him in so many settings, I can't even keep track of them. And I've written about most of them. Whether it's on the AAU circuit, he played in the Adidas League, or at other showcase events, um, at open gyms at his high school, in-home visits. Um, the list goes on and on and on. It's just all over the place. They have showed, as far as I can tell, Duron and Jordan Smith Jr. are the top targets for Syracuse in this class. That's just my opinion, and I do have some knowledge, but that's just my opinion. And Duron, I think he just officially visited Texas. He had a top 12 and then pared it down to a top 9. There's some chatter out there among recruiting analysts that he's likely to pick an Adidas school, given he played on the Adidas circuit and some other connections there. I've been told from several people that that's not necessarily accurate. Not that he might not pick an Adidas school, but they mentioned like Tennessee or NC State and Louisville, maybe one other that I'm not remembering. Look, I know I'm a Syracuse alum, so I'm kind of a homer, but I'm also being real because I know that Duron's recruitment as well as pretty much anyone out there. Syracuse is in the mix. I'm not saying they're going to win out, and if I had to take the field over or Syracuse, I'd probably take the field because, duh. But Syracuse has a real opportunity to show Duron once again that he's their priority in this class, that playing time assumably would be available, although Nate George is only a junior. So, I guess if he had a great year, he could go pro. He's the transfer from Georgia Tech, but you also don't know what roster construction, what the roster is going to look like next year in terms of guys hitting the portal, Syracuse getting guys out of the portal, and then you've obviously got the prep recruits. But Duron is up there among the top targets. He's big on culture. He's big on family. His dad goes way back with Adrian Autry and Alan Griffin, and that doesn't mean that Syracuse is going to win. And if NIL, I don't know if NIL could be a factor. Syracuse is competitive, but they might not be able to throw what some other schools will. But I also don't think Duron is the type of kid where he's gonna, unless God forbid he had an injury, and I of course don't want that to happen. He's a great young man, great student, unselfish teammate, but he's going to be a pro. So the money will be there. So I don't think, unless Syracuse is way off, that that's going to be the determining factor. But there's other big schools in the mix. But bottom line, this is a huge weekend. I hope his visit goes well. Syracuse, whether it's Adrian Autry, Griffin, who's been his lead recruiter, Alex Klein, like the whole staff has been in for Rippy. So this is a big one. All right, we're going to move to another 2026, and that's Vaughn Corvala. He was scheduled initially to officially visit Syracuse this same weekend with Duron Rippy Jr. Not they just happened to schedule the same. I think Mike McAllister of 24/7 Sports first reported that a while back, but I was told by a source that that visit is not happening this weekend. It is not because he's not interested in Syracuse. It's just a scheduling thing. He's at a new school this year, yada, yada, yada. They're working on a new date. He will visit Syracuse. I mean, I guess I can't say with 100% certainty, but I'm 99.9% certain that Vaughn Corvala, who is a 2026 four-star wing slash small forward, top 30 national prospect according to ESPN, he will officially visit Syracuse. He has unofficially visited Syracuse, did that last November, and then got offered not long after that. Syracuse has been for him on the EYBL circuit. He played with Team Hero. He's from Wisconsin, but he's spending his senior year at CIA Bella Vista in Phoenix, which is in the EYBL Scholastic. And he's another one of Syracuse's top targets. I'm just going to grab a drink here. But again, I'm reporting that he's not visiting this weekend, but that doesn't mean that like Syracuse is out of the mix for him. So let's just not get too worried. I'm just reporting news and I'm giving context. But Vaughn's been a fast riser between his play on the EYBL circuit and other showcases. He's shot up. Um, if I'm not mistaken, he's officially visited Xavier, but he's got some big other offers. I think Alabama's in on him and a couple others. So, I'm not saying Syracuse is going to win out for him, but they're heavy in for Vaughn. So we're going to move from there. We're just going to talk about the 2026 class as a whole. Okay. Here's what I know and what I feel comfortable talking about. So at the top of the list, again, are guys like Duron Rippy Jr., Jordan Smith Jr., who plays at St. Paul VI Catholic High School. He's a top 5 national prospect. He's unofficially visited Syracuse. I'm told he will. Nothing's been set yet, but he will visit Syracuse again. And it might be later on when Syracuse basketball is playing because he is not expected to sign during the early signing period. And he's with Team Takeover in the DMV. Both Brendan Strawn and Adrian Autry have deep ties to Team Takeover. The staff as a whole has deep ties as far as recruiting the DMV, my hometown. And Autry also used to be an assistant at St. Paul VI. I am not saying that Syracuse is going to win out for Jordan, but they have a shot. Syracuse is in his top 5 or 6. I can't remember exactly, but Duke is a big competitor. I think he just visited Calipari at Arkansas. Georgetown, being a local school, is a big competitor. But Syracuse has a shot here. Brendan Strawn has recruited Smith harder than anyone else. They offered Smith in May of 2023, and they've been in for him on the EYBL circuit, at his high school, at showcases. Strawn's been in the last 2 years overseas for him when Jordan Smith Jr. played for Team USA junior national teams. Just like with Rippy, if Syracuse doesn't win out for these two guys, it's not because they didn't put in the work. So those two guys I would put at the top of the list. But then I'd also have up there, I'd have Dakari Spear, who's going to play at Dynamic Prep in Texas. As a senior, and Dynamic Prep made it to the finals of the Chipotle Nationals this past year, where they lost to Columbus from Miami. But Dakari is a four-star shooting guard, top 60-ish national prospect. He officially visited a couple weeks ago. Syracuse is heavy for him. I would also say Asher Elson, who's from New York City and plays in overtime elite. He is officially visiting Syracuse in October. Um, Griffin and I believe Autry, the Syracuse staff has been pursuing him for a long time. He's a four-star wing. He's like a 6'11" wing slash power forward slash slender center, I guess. So he's more of like like a stretch four, I would say. And he's like a top 125 national prospect. I think he's underrated in the class. I've had people that have watched him play many times tell me that he's got really insane skills. So he's visiting in October. So Ralph Scott from IMG was supposed to visit in October, but canceled that trip, and Syracuse is no longer among his finalists. He plays at IMG as a four-star small forward. Alio Dioam, who also plays at CI Bella Vista, a 2026 four-star center, verbally committed to West Virginia the other day. Syracuse was in his top six, so those guys are out. So I would say, to me, if you're looking at 2026, Dakari Spear, Elson, Jordan Smith, and Rippy are like the four I would hone in on. Other guys to keep an eye on: Alex Costanza, who's a five-star guard slash small forward playing at Spire Academy in Ohio. He officially visited last October. It's been kind of like up and down in terms of Syracuse with him. I mean, his dad has told me that he might visit again. I think he recently scheduled an OV to Kansas, maybe. He's visited Georgetown, Illinois, Miami. I'm honest. I'm going to check in with Alex's dad at some point, Ed Costanza, because I'm not sure where things are right now. But he's a guy to keep an eye on, as well as 2026 four-star power forward MJ Madison, who was at Long Island Lutheran, where Kyan Anthony played, but is now at Prolific Prep, which moved its campus from Napa, California to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. MJ was offered by Syracuse this spring and said at the time that he was interested in visiting, but I haven't heard a ton since, so I'm not 100% sure. So those are two guys to keep an eye on. One other guy to note. So I've seen some chatter among recruiting analysts, and then a source of mine also confirmed this to me yesterday. So Clyde Walters is a 2027 four-star wing. I believe he's from Alabama originally. He played at Brewster Academy last year, but then he's transferred to Overtime Elite, the professional league in Atlanta. And he is among several guys where there's chatter about him maybe reclassifying from 2027 to 2026. And a source of mine, a good source, told me that Syracuse is trying to get him on campus for a visit. Nothing is set up yet, but that's one to keep an eye on. So again, just kind of wrapping up here, 2026 kind of buzz, chatter, intel from my perspective. Jordan Smith Jr., Duron Rippy Jr., Vaughn Corvala, Asher Elson, and then a couple other guys to keep an eye on: MJ Madison, Alex Costanza, Clyde Walters. I mean, there could be other guys, or those guys might not be in play, but that's kind of like my sense right now. So we'll see. Syracuse has 13 scholarship players right now. You can have up to 15 with the house settlement. We have no idea what their roster will look like next year based on, well, we know some guys will be gone based on exhausting their college eligibility, but we don't know about younger guys in terms of anyone going pro, transferring in, transferring out. So it's tough to tell. But I think the days of Syracuse, what, in 2022, the best class ever according to Jim Boeheim, they had six guys, right? That's just not gonna. I just don't see that happening anymore. I mean, maybe you could have four or five, especially with a 15 scholarship limit instead of 13. But guys want to play and they'll just transfer. So again, if Syracuse got three guys out of all those dudes I mentioned, that'd be a nice class to me. Especially, again, Rippy and Smith are top 10 guys. Corrales top 30. Elson further down but underrated. Walters is, I don't remember if he's top 50 or not. I should know that. Sorry, but he's a good player. Costanza's a top 20 player. Madison's a top 100 player. But anyway, they get a couple of those guys. It's going to be a good class. And as I hear more stuff, I will pass it along here on Syracuse Central. Okay, just want to wrap up here with something on JMA JJ Starling. So um, Syracuse basketball started their official preseason practices on Monday, and there was some stuff on there on social media, some pictures, and like there were some former Syracuse guys up there. I think it was Tyus Battle and Eton Thomas, and a couple others at practice, which was cool. But they showed pictures where JJ had some kind of splint on his right hand, and I came across a couple weeks ago a couple of Instagram story post showing a similar thing. And a couple of weeks ago, I asked a team spokesperson about it, and that spokesperson said they couldn't comment because the team wasn't in official practices. Okay, well, official practices started Monday. Mike Waters of Syracuse.com yesterday had a piece where an SU spokesperson was attributed saying that, not giving specifics about this injury, but saying JJ isn't expected to miss any time due to this, injury to his right hand. I asked a spokesperson about JJ, and frankly, was told no comment, which I find to be a little hilarious since it was already out there in the public space with Mike Waters' piece. But like, whatever. The bottom line is hopefully, the important thing here is hopefully JJ is not going to miss any time. He missed 7 games last year with a broken left hand, and then Donnie Freeman, the only other returnee, also missed a ton of time. He only played in 14 games. And now Starling's obviously going to be limited somewhat in preseason practices. But again, hopefully he's not missing any time. Syracuse needs him to have a great season, to have, to realistically have a shot at getting back to the NCAA tournament after a 4-year absence. Him and Freeman are the two returnees. And then, yeah, they've got a 6-member transfer class, some really good players. They've got 5-member prep class, Sadiq White, Kyan Anthony, Luke Fennell, etc. But Starling is the veteran of this team. He's been there 3 years. He's a Central New York native, and they need him healthy and to have a good year. So we'll see. They have 2 exhibitions in late October, and then they get going for real against Binghamton at home in early November. So we'll see. I'll continue to keep tabs and check in, and hopefully the team will be more forthcoming with information. But I get it. There's also like HIPAA laws and privacy laws and all that. So it's all good. Bottom line is I hope JJ is okay, and then he'll be ready for the start of the season. And that's going to do it, friends. So I hope you like this episode. Like I said, I know it's football season, but I like to do Syracuse. Syracuse basketball is going to be here before you know it, and I just love recruiting on both sports. So hopefully you like today's show. I'll provide intel and updates as much as I can. We'll likely get back into Syracuse football on Friday ahead of Duke game on Saturday. As always, constructive feedback and criticism is welcomed. Tell me what you like and you don't like. I really appreciate you tuning in, taking the time. This is Neil Adler with Syracuse Central on the Fan Arch Network. Have a great rest of your Thursday, and I will talk to you again tomorrow on Friday. Take care, friends.